In Season 5, Episode 9 of The Sopranos, Unidentified Black Males, New Jersey mob boss Tony Soprano goes out to dinner with his daughter Meadow and her boyfriend, Finn DeTrolio. It looks like things are going good. The atmosphere is warm and convivial. Finn and Tony talk, Finn's open with AJ, and he then walks away from the table. Tony asks for the check, the waiter says the young man took care of it, and immediately we can sense that the mood on the table has changed. The look on Meadow's face says it all. It's like her dysentery has come out, and the burning fury in Tony's face is juxtaposed by a jolly Finn arriving back and saying Tony's always so generous and that he should reciprocate. And Tony replies,
"You're lucky you don't get your head handed to you.
Dad.
Let's get something straight. You eat, I pay.
Mr. Soprano.
No, when you have your own family, you pay."
So why was Tony so angry with Finn for paying for dinner? Well, let's discuss. I always found Finn an interesting character, the first of Meadow's boyfriends who Tony is actually happy with. From the minor supporting characters of the show, he's involved in a few of the series' key plots, like the outing of Vito Spatafori as an ass muncher. Finn can be a bit prone to faux pas at times, like asking a clearly stressed Carmela for a towel during Hugh's birthday party, or showing up to work early with deadly results. But overall, he's a well-intentioned, healthy, boring, educated young man who's set for a career as a dentist. It's no wonder Tony likes him. He's Italian, and yet he's not in the mob, so Meadow won't be too far from her heritage and culture if she marries him, but at the same time, she won't be with a guy who's mobbed up. He's a far cry from the likes of Jamal Hindenburg. Plus, if Tony knocks somebody's teeth out, he can put them right back in. It's suggested that Tony sees medicine as the antithesis of the mafia lifestyle. Perhaps it's the idea of repairing and mending life as opposed to tarnishing and ending it. He loved the idea of Meadow becoming a doctor and was disappointed when she decided to become a lawyer, and perhaps he saw her hooking up with a dentist as the next best thing. In any case, Finn is quite an important character for Meadow's arc, from being Tony's one true joy, his innocent guardian angel, to becoming a fully fledged mob lawyer. The seeds are there throughout the show. The "are you in the mafia" scene, her talking with Jackie Jr.'s sister after Jackie drowns in 3 inches of snow, and her disgust at Tony's arrest. Over the course of the show, Meadow must reckon with who her father is and what he does, and a fantastic scene to illustrate this is the legendary suitcase argument between her and Finn, and another when the duo eat chili during a heat wave. As well as being an entertaining, accurate dispute that would occur between two liberal, spoiled college students, there's something going on here that a lot of people miss. Finn is blankly stating to Meadow what her family is involved in. He talks about Vito potentially killing him. He also told Meadow about the Eugene and Little Paulie incident, whatever happened there. She brushes it all off because deep down she's unwilling to consider and accept what her relatives and extended family actually is, and that her father is at the center of it all. Instead of coming to terms with it, she gaslights Finn, telling him that the likes of Vito and Eugene are sweet, kind men. The dichotomy is clear between her saying, "He's so sweet," and him responding, "Sweet, he was like an animal." The sacred and the profane. Finn is like a hammer coming down on her. It's like an intervention, but she's like a brick wall and refuses to budge.
You should have seen these guys. They were laughing. It was fucking sick. I mean, is this what you grew up with?
What are you talking about?
These people, your dad's friends.
I never saw one bit of violence growing up.
What about your dad's road rage? And didn't you tell me you had a boyfriend once who was killed, shot to death or something?
First of all, he was killed by drug dealers. African Americans, if that makes you feel any better. You know, you talk about these guys like it's an anthropology class, but the truth is they bring certain modes of conflict resolution from all the way back in the old country, from the poverty of the Mezzogiorno, where all higher authority was corrupt.
A lot to unpack here, but this Meadow, drenched in cognitive dissonance, is a far cry from the one who insinuated to her mum in season 2 that Jackie Jr. was killed by Tony and the mob. She now has internalized the delusions, Orwellian doublespeak, and indoctrination that has been fed to her over the years, and uses it to victim blame Finn repeatedly and invalidate his experiences. Finn got out a suitcase because he's genuinely fearing for his life, and Meadow makes it all about the suitcase because going beyond that would open up very uncomfortable conversations like, I don't know, her previous boyfriend getting shot in the back of the head by the very guy Finn is in fear of. I wonder what happened to Finn. We never saw why he and Meadow broke up. Lovers' quarrel maybe, but the cracks were already there. But I theorize that maybe he picked up a newspaper down the line, seen the news of Vito's death, and realised that he was responsible for Vito's therapy, which involved a £95 pool cue. I don't think he would be able to take it, and he would have bailed out of his relationship with Meadow if he hadn't already with all the stress her and her environment caused him. Interestingly, Finn would have never known that technically Tony wasn't actually responsible for Vito's murder. He would have assumed his testimony to his future father-in-law and the guys at Satrial's led to the brutal killing of the parade float. Perhaps this is why Meadow refuses to talk about the breakup, not because it's so emotional or traumatic, but because she can't talk about it without confronting what her dad does for a living. Or maybe Finn dumped Meadow because he didn't want to take a girlfriend that a minority could have. Anyway, we've gone off on a long tangent. Such is the brilliant writing of The Sopranos. Let's go back to the bill, and why Finn's effort to impress Tony had the opposite effect of making him Tony's arch nemesis even before Finn mentioned his reasons for paying the check. Finn thought it was an effective technique to warm up to Tony, a friggin' ace, but it fails miserably, and he then suffers in silence, though Tony does later apologise for his attitude. You know, personally, I never really felt that the scene needed explaining, but I have seen Sopranos fans ask the question. There is something, as a man, a family man with a wife and kids, that resonates in Tony's irritation. I think a lot of men can understand his feelings, even if his reaction was over the top. Some consider it an old school mentality, but it's not even that it's old school, it's very common in many societies, patriarchal ones especially, for the man of the family, or whoever assumes the fatherly role, whether it be uncle, brother, whatever, to be the one to pay for meals. It was not Shaggy's place to pay. He is throwing a spanner in the works of the developed hierarchy, causing dysentery in the ranks, if you will, by inadvertently assuming that fatherly role, and doing so without asking, no less. In many cultures, this would be an embarrassing situation for the breadwinner to be in, let alone the hyper-masculine culture Tony is a part of. It was among the Italians real greaseball shit. It would be like Tony coming home to find Finn sitting at the head of the table, carving the Thanksgiving turkey and whistling through Carmela's wheat fields once a year. It was simply not Finn's place to pay. Listen to this prick paying checks. The issue at heart is pride. Being able to take one's family out for a nice meal is a source of pride as a father, especially as your children become adults themselves. It's a sign that you've achieved your goals, you have done your duties as a father to put food on the table, and have now gone the extra mile by now being able to offer your family extravagant meals from nice restaurants and such. It's Tony's responsibility. He's the motherfucking one who pays the checks, and it's a source of pride and pleasure for him to do so. It's a weird reference, but it kind of reminds me of an episode in Everybody Loves Raymond, where the family is also Italian, where Ray's father becomes upset when he buys him a big fish tank, and he later learns that it was because of how much it cost, and his father felt undermined, as if what was being said was he couldn't buy a fish tank of his own. It's his job, and Finn is taking that away from him. Real lack of standards, his generation. It's like when Rust mows Marty's lawn in True Detective. It's just wrong. That's Marty's job as the man of the house. You don't mow another man's lawn, and you don't pay for his family's dinner. In deprived times, back to the poverty of the Mezzogiorno, this was the role of the man in the family, to go out and to make the money or get the resources to put food on the table. To fail was to starve your family, cause their death even. The importance of this might now be more symbolic, or not as life and death, but it's deeply ingrained into the psyche of previous generations. And you see, out there it's the 1990s, but in this house it's 1954. Tony's from the old school, he shouldn't have to explain himself. If Finn gives Meadow his last name, then it's none of Tony's business. And that may be a cheesy insertion of a Sopranos quote, but it's an apt summarization of the situation. When Finn has that responsibility, and that time will come, it will be his burden and his pleasure to pay. But for now,
You eat, I pay.
But in Tony's case, it's more than just that. Tony likes to be in charge, and one way he establishes this is by ensuring he was the one who made things happen. For example, paying for meals. Unless, of course, he's working up a tab at Vesuvio's or forcing Chrissy to pay for mob meals. The one who pays is the one who is earning, the one most relied upon. It makes Tony insecure to have these things taken away from him. Tony doesn't want to go home having eaten out of another man's hand. There's nothing that will make him feel less of a man than some college kid picking up a tab to a dinner that he invited him to. It's undermining, and it's exactly the sort of stuff he's teaching his kids not to do. There's a respect element that Finn has overstepped, in his part as a guest. He's paying for a grown man's dinner with his children as if he's inferring Tony can't take care of his family, like he's challenging Tony's status as his family's provider. It was a kind gesture. There was no abundant intentionality, but it was miscalculated. We also have to remember that Tony compromises on his morals to pay for his family's goods. Think of Carmela overlooking his infidelity when he brings home another necklace or brooch. He does evil things, he commits crimes, but ultimately, his rationale is that he puts food on the table for his family. That's why he has to do these things. If you take that away from him, how does he justify what else he brings to the table? His essence as the provider is being challenged, and that's all he brings to the table. He doesn't have hobbies, talents, interests in the art. All he has for his family is his ability to provide. Finn broke through the social norms in that instance. He should have been made right there and then, boom. Not to mention, this is occurring at a time when he and Carmela have split. He has to leave the house that he had built, that he paid for. In other words, he has other reasons to feel insecure at this moment in time. This is a small scene in the show. It could have gotten cut out, but in many ways it encapsulates what the show is about. Family, masculinity, dominance, payments, and that dominance aspect, bribing, gifting, tipping, charity, they're all means of ownership in the world of The Sopranos. You could argue it's a cultural thing, it's a patriarchal thing, a manly thing, a toxic Tony thing, or a combination of all really. We have to take into consideration that it's essentially a rite of passage from childhood to adulthood to eat with your parents and to pay for the meal. Finn is not part of the family yet, and that's why he overstepped the mark. He's still a kid who's dating his daughter. He shouldn't have the gall to pay for dinner. It's sad when they pay young like that. Once Finn proves himself or marries Meadow, she then becomes his responsibility. But as of now, in this culture, she belongs to Tony. There's plenty of other times he will have to pay for dinner. It's also a bit silly for Finn to do in hindsight. He's at a dinner with a wealthy man at a time where he himself will have financial stresses. There's no need to pay the bill. If he wants to impress Tony, there's better ways to do so. And he's already got a head start by not starring in those old Tarzan movies. A normal father might have been a little uncomfortable in this situation, saying, "Oh, you shouldn't have," or something. Maybe even trying to pay Finn back or insisting they have dessert and pay to normalize the balance. But Tony didn't have that emotional stability. If someone invites you out and you pay behind their back, it can come off as a bit condescending. This uppity college boy paying for the lowly waste management man's meal. And Tony would have not wanted to be caught out in surprise like that, like Finn's got one over him. When the bill came round, Finn should have maybe asked to pay or insisted he contribute, and Tony would be able to decline but appreciate his efforts. But going behind his back perhaps humiliated Tony, and in his world, such a play would be seen as a power move. So what do you make of this? Was Finn wrong for paying for dinner, or was Tony overreacting? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Subscribe to the channel, and thanks for watching.